Story shared by Pauli. I'm a very sensitive girl to these paranormal things. Many people may not believe in these things, but life itself has made sure that I do. Everything that has happened to me cannot be a coincidence, and the people who are very close to me know that this is real because when they are with me, these things happen. I swear I don't feel proud of it, but it is something my family has dealt with since I was 3 years old. This story I will tell you is a couple of years old, and it was when I had just moved to live in Guadalajara. We came from Morelia, specifically from a house where strange things happened, but it doesn't compare at all to what would happen in that house, which still scares me just to remember it. When we first moved in, everything seemed normal. We arrived in the city very late at night, so the moving truck hadn't arrived, and we ended up sleeping on inflatable mattresses in the living room. It was a very quiet night. In the following days, everything continued normally. It wasn't until the move began in earnest that strange things started to happen. The house had 3 bedrooms, a service room, the living room, and the dining room. The room I wanted was the one right next to the living room, as it had a wall with beautiful glass. From the moment we arrived, my brother and I started arguing because we both wanted that room. In the end, he had to give in so I could have it. When they started bringing things into the house, my mom mentioned that I started acting very strange, something I don't remember. I began saying that I no longer wanted that room, that I wanted the room in the back. She even says I became aggressive, but she didn't give it much importance. She just thought it was an effect of the move on me. In the end, I ended up staying in a room that was always cold and was right at the back of the house. We moved all the things and I finished setting up the room. The first night I was supposed to sleep in that room, I couldn't. Being there alone gave me a sense of fear. I didn't want to enter that room by myself. My fear was so great that a month and a half passed, and I preferred to sleep on an inflatable mattress rather than in that room. If I wanted to go in for clothes, I would call my brother to accompany me because I simply couldn't be there. And the worst part is that I didn't understand the reason. My mother put her foot down and told me I was too old for nonsense, that I had to go to sleep there. I started having very strange dreams about the house, but I didn't pay much attention to them, as I thought it was all a product of my mind. Everyone noticed that the house was cold all the time, to the point that in the summer you had to wear a coat inside. They thought it was something about the construction until one day when we were in the living room, it sounded as if someone was in another room. The problem was that my whole family was together and there was no one else in the house. That was the first thing that caught our attention. My father is usually very skeptical about these matters, so he didn't give it much importance. The problem was that whatever it was preferred to scare us when we were alone. And I was the first. It was Saturday morning and everyone was at work. I was alone on the computer passing the time when suddenly, in the computer's reflection, I saw someone pass behind me. I got scared but decided to ignore it. Then I heard someone whispering in my ear, "See, see, 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 see." I tried to be brave and just turned up the music volume. Suddenly the sound got louder. I couldn't react to it when a piercing scream came from my room calling my name, Anna, a name almost no one knows. The scream was so disturbing that I just burst into tears and then called my mom to come for me. I don't remember much after that. I just know that my brother was supposed to pick me up and I told my mom I don't want anyone to come. I'm fine. I want to be alone. I still can't remember saying those words, but my brother swears I did. Later, my parents arrived and I was just sitting in the living room doing nothing. When I told my mom, she said it was my imagination and not to give it importance. And so it was until a cousin came to live with us because he was going to start university here in Guadalajara. One day I came home from school and my cousin, puzzled, told me, "Hey, someone was screaming, Anna." I thought it was a neighbor, but then I realized the scream was coming from your room. Was someone coming to see you? I could only tell him I didn't know anything because truly no one could have come. I didn't know anyone nearby and no one I knew where I lived. I told my mom about this and she remained silent. She couldn't give me an answer. The events were isolated, but everything seemed to be against me. It seemed that whatever it was looking for me. Another day I was sitting at the table talking with my mom. The table was in front of the stove and I was sitting in the chair with my back to the stove's grill. I still can't explain it, but just as I got up from the chair, the water my mom was heating shot out in my direction. My mother could only start praying and told me to get out of the house. I tried to find a logical explanation 1,000 times, but there was no way the pot could have flown off like that. It was as if someone had thrown it at me. That day we prayed and decided not to talk about it. Gradually, things got worse. My brother would have the lights turned on and off during the night. And, for example, if you left your locked phone on the table, it would start locking and unlocking by itself. Similarly, photos would appear out of nowhere on the phones, as if someone was playing with them during the night. No one said anything to each other because we thought it was our imagination. Little by little, those dreams I had became more diabolical. There's no other way to say it. I constantly dreamed in front of the staircase leading to the service room. In the dream I tried to bless these stairs. I would say in the name of the Father, the Son, and make the sign of the cross with my hand. And just when I was about to say in the name of the Holy Spirit, at that moment, a warm hand would grab my wrist and stop me. The first night I dreamed it, I woke up and my wrist hurt. Besides, it was very red, extremely red. And that was the start of many months of dreaming the same thing every day. It was terrifying and also exhausting. It got to the point where there was a bottle of holy water in every room. All of this was because of the things happening to us. My mother constantly saw a girl coming out of my room. When she approached, she noticed I was always asleep. She didn't know who it was, but it was a girl she always saw dressed in white. My brother even saw a shadow in his room. I continued having those cursed dreams, and several mornings I woke up with scratches on my back. On one occasion, something happened that seemed straight out of a movie, something I still can't explain. Over time, and due to everything that was happening to us, we decided to get a little dog to keep us company and defend us from whatever was there. Those were not good times. My dad couldn't find a job, we got sick often, and being in the house was a torment. I started having strange thoughts about wanting to die, even though I had always been a very cheerful and smiling girl. In short, those were not good times. One day, I was alone in the house with Hal and my little dog. With her, I felt safe. I started praying everything I knew, but it wasn't enough. I felt chills enveloping me and I didn't know what to do. Hallie woke up and her hair stood on end. She began to growl. It was the first time I heard her growl, as she is a very gentle dog. She started barking at something or someone and then began to walk as if she were following someone. I didn't understand it, but I gathered the courage to say, "Get out of here. You have no right and don't belong here. Leave and go back where you came from. I'm not afraid of you." I don't know how I managed to say this because, in truth, I was more scared than ever in my life. We kept walking and I followed Hallie, who was the one seeing this thing. Suddenly, she stopped at my parents' bedroom door. Then she started to cry as if something terrified her. She wanted to leave the house, but I was already very angry. I didn't want that thing to think it could drive me out of my own home. So, I went into the room. I sat on the floor and began to pray. I told Hallie to come in. She mustered up the courage and came into my arms. I stayed there for a few minutes. I got up and just as I was leaving, the door closed by itself. That was enough to make me even angrier. When I opened the door, I saw how the heavy wooden crucifix above my parents' bed had left a mark on the wall, as if it had turned around and returned to its place. I couldn't take it anymore and I prayed as I left the house with Hallie. It wasn't the only time that thing drove us out of the house out of fear. My brother preferred to be outside rather than alone in the house because he knew that being alone meant the lights would turn on and off, and he would hear doors slamming for no reason. Holy water didn't help us, nor did prayers or divine figures. I was becoming more isolated and my parents argued often. My father still had no good job offers and my brother was always tired. My cousin could no longer sleep in the dark, despite being 23 years old. All because this thing, which we don't know what it was, once tried to suffocate him. It sounds impossible, but he swears he woke up and saw a man on top of him, with his hands around his neck, pressing and refusing to let go. My cousin says he tried to pray but couldn't. Just when he said, "Our Father," those hands released him and he could finally breathe. But since that day he doesn't sleep with the light off. Several years have passed, but there are fears we still haven't overcome. In the end, that thing had worn us out. This was intended to protect me, as my mother was also concerned because she had heard that scream coming from my room, calling my name. I never understood why, but one day at 3 a.m. I heard voices in my room. I couldn't open my eyes, but I heard them. One of the voices said, it's her, I'm sure it's her." There were two male voices, but when I woke up there was no one there. I don't understand what they wanted from me, I just know they were looking for me. We ended up moving after 4 years of living in that house. We moved to a house 3 blocks away, and during the move I kept going back and forth between the 2 houses. My mother said she was finishing sweeping her room and heard someone kicking the boxes in the living room, as if they were very angry. She thought it was me until she saw me coming in a few minutes later. She was so scared that she started praying, and then we left that house. Since we live nearby, we've noticed that the house hasn't been rented for more than a month at a time. I can assure you that everyone who has entered the house, whether family or friends, has experienced something inexplicable. To this day, my mother can't even walk past that house. She prefers to go around it rather than look at it. When we arrived at the new house at midnight, it sounded as if someone was trying all the doorknobs, as if someone was trying to get in. My mother lit a Paschal candle and it stopped. Strange things still happen to me, but they don't compare to that house. Nothing can compare. I know that something or someone has something against me or somehow wants me. Because even an ex-boyfriend, while with me, experienced something. And he didn't believe in these things. Turns out I was beside him. Suddenly he squeezed my hand tightly and turned very pale. I asked him what was happening. Stammering, he said, "I heard a man." He whispered in my ear, "Anna?" As I said, "I don't know what they want from me, but they keep looking for me."